and welcome to another Lawn Fawn video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new stamp set Unicorn Picnic. This stamp set has 3 cute little unicorns, some fun puffy clouds, and lots of goodies and sweets to set the scene for their picnic. There's also little smiley faces you can add to the clouds. There's also a reveal wheel add-on die that you can get to go with this set. You can see there's the puffy cloud that cuts out the frame, a die that cuts out the unicorn with the cloud, and then of course the puzzle piece that drops into the reveal wheel so you can cut out the cloud opening. The first card we're going to make in this video today, we're going to make an ink blended background. So I chose some pinks and purples for my background just for something a little bit different. And I'm going to start with a plain piece of white cardstock. And I'm going to blend that tattered rose, which is the palest of my colors, along one edge. Next, I'm going to go in with some worn lipstick distress oxide and put that through the center. Then I'll just go back to the tattered rose and blend the line between the two colors so that they blend and you don't see that line as much. Lastly, I'm going to go in with Wilted Violet, and I'm going to go along the other edge. I'm just going to pull that ink towards the center where that worn lipstick pink color is. So I'll go back with that worn lipstick and go over that line again between those two colors till they're blended more seamlessly. Once I have my background looking the way I want, I'm actually going to add some white metallic watercolor speckles. So I'm making sort of like a dreamy nighttime sky, like we're up in the clouds. So this is sort of like the stars. And I chose the white to kind of go along with the dreamy clouds we're going to have. To create even smaller flecks of paint, I'm going to put some of that and flick it off the side of a clear block, and that'll create even smaller splatters. Now to work on my moon, I've sat that other piece aside and I've just got a stitch circle cut out of some patterned paper from Hello Sunshine. You can see there's some rays there in that paper. They're very subtle. And then I'm just inking the edges of it with some Wild Honey Distress ink. I'm going to put it in my paper trimmer and cut a straight line on the bottom. And this is where the cloud is going to sit. So now to decorate the clouds, I've stamped that long cloud, and I'm just putting a little bit of glue along the top of it on the inside of that stamped line. And I'm going to add some chunky glitter to this. This is going to go along with the sentiment that I put on this card. So I'm going to be adding this chunky glitter to all of the clouds I'm going to use. And I'm just going to hold that with my tweezers here and shake it right onto that cloud over a coffee filter. And this is a good way to collect my glitter so I can pour it back into the container when I'm done. So I'm going to add the glitter in the same way to these smaller clouds. And then that glue can dry while I work on some other parts of the card. So I'm moving on to the sentiment, which I'm going to stamp directly onto this moon that we've created. And I'm starting with this large scripty word glitter because it's kind of the main focal point of the sentiment. And then I'm going to selectively ink up the next stamp that says, can never have enough. So I'm going to stamp have enough, and then I'm going to wipe that off on my chamois. And then I can ink up the first half of this sentiment stamp just by inking it on the edge of the pad that says can never. And then to finish it off, I'll add the word you. So this is a little stamp by itself. So now you can see the sentiment there says you can never have enough glitter. So that chunky glitter makes a lot more sense now. I'm going to take the ink blended panel I made earlier and I'm just going to mount that onto a card base. And then I'm actually going to put some little foam squares on the back of that long cloud. And I'm using my grid mat to line this up, and I'm just going to go ahead and stick it right to the bottom of the moon. So it's popped up from that moon just a little bit. And then now I can add some glue to the back of the moon and just put this right onto that card base. So now to put my other clouds on, and I'm popping these up with some thin foam squares so they don't pop up quite as much. These are half the thickness. But I'm just layering them to where they cross over the moon a little bit and then also cross over onto my background. So now I've got my unicorns and my other little images here, and I've colored these unicorns sort of like they remind me of My Little Pony. I colored a purple one and a teal colored one, and I'm adding the normal thickness foam squares to this so that they'll be popped up just a little bit more. And I added a thin one where that unicorn's going to overlap the cloud a little bit. So this gives you some different variations in height. I'm going to do the same thing to this bowl of ice cream here, and I'm putting liquid glue on it because it is on top of that cloud on top of all that glitter, so it'll make sure it stays in place. I'm adding the thin foam squares to the bottom of the unicorn and the thick to the top so that it's all layered correctly on top of that cloud. And then what I did is I went in with my quickie glue pen. So this is just a pen filled with glue, and I'm going to add some of the Prisma glitter, the really fine glitter. And I'm just picking that up with the cap of my pen, and then I'm just going to shake it off onto a piece of paper. I didn't use a whole lot of glitter, so I'm not going to try to save what I shook off the unicorn horns. And then finally I'm going to add in my fairies. And then I'm going to do some stamping. So there's some fun little sparkle stamps in this stamp set. So I'm going in with some carrot ink, which is an orange ink, but it looks really good on this yellow paper and it shows up. So I'm just going to add in some of those sparkles just stamped around in my little scene on that moon. And then next I'm going to stamp the tiny little heart that's in this set right on the bums of my unicorns, so very much like My Little Pony. And I'm using oxide ink here so that it shows up really well on top of that coloring. And then finally I'm going back with my little sparkle stamps, and I'm using that wilted violet oxide ink to stamp some sparkles on the background, so off the moon. I kept the orange ink to the moon, and then these purple ones are all around outside the moon. And then now my card is all finished. And it's just so cute, and it cannot have enough glitter for sure. Next, I'm going to show you how to make a reveal wheel card, and this card was inspired by a card by Megan. So you can see that you take that little puzzle piece that's the cloud, pop it right into your reveal wheel die. I already had that piece of tape there, and you get that cloud cut out on your background. I've cut this out of some spiffy speckles paper. I also cut that reveal wheel panel out of some white and some pearlescent vellum, and I'm just going to use my Puffy cloud border dies to create some clouds to go along the bottom. So you can see I've gone ahead and I've cut the white with that border, and then I'm going to layer that pearlescent vellum behind it so that I can see where my clouds are, and then I'll just line it up and cut that border again. So you can see I'm shifting it around so they don't look like they're exactly in the same spot, because for this one I used the same border die. I didn't use a different size. There are two reveal wheel templates you can buy to go along with this reveal wheel add-on. One is the guide for the open cloud, and then the other is the guide for the cloud with the unicorns. You can see that the tail kind of goes into that shape a little bit, so there's a different one for that. That's the one we're going to be using, and I just wanted to point out, don't do like I did. Make sure you have it oriented the right way. So that little piece where the tail is comes in from the right side, and I actually had it flipped over incorrectly. So you just want to check that you've got it the right way lined up onto your reveal wheel. So now that I've got that in place, I'm actually going to stamp little smiley faces in all of these, and I'm stamping a different face in each one. There are 4 little faces to choose from in this stamp set. So the one I did not use is the one with the sunglasses. I used the other 3. And then there's also some little cheeks to stamp. And so what I did was I went in and I stamped each one with different colored cheeks. Instead of making them all pink, I just thought that would be a fun thing to do. So I've got some blue cheeks, some pink cheeks, and then I have some purple cheeks. Next, I'm going to stamp the sentiment that says "Have a magical day" along the bottom of those clouds that I cut earlier. And then I'm just going to go in with some tumbled glass distress ink and a blending brush and just blend some blue ink lightly along the bottom. So now to assemble the reveal wheel, I'm taking that small brad and the small circle, I'm going to insert that through the back of my wheel that I stamped earlier. And I'm going to go ahead and glue this little unicorn down to the cloud. And I did mistakenly put a little bit of glue on his tail. If you can remember to avoid that, otherwise just wipe it off because that part is actually going to overlap the opening and you don't want that glue to get on your wheel. So I'm going to pull off the backer pieces from those 3 little foam squares that I've put on the small circle. I'm going to shift it around till I get it in the right place using those score lines as a guide. And then I've got my solid white piece that I cut, and I'm just going to layer those 2 together, lining them up, and that will put my wheel in the perfect place. So now you can see those cute little smiles scroll right through that cloud. Now I can finish assembling my front panel. So I'm just using some tape runner to put those white clouds on top of that pearlescent vellum. And then I'll put the adhesive for the vellum just down along the bottom where those white clouds are. So I'm keeping my adhesive down where that solid cardstock is so that you don't see it through the vellum at all. And then I'm just going to line that up with the bottom of that front reveal wheel panel. Next, I can start to assemble my little unicorns here. So I'm just going to put them on some foam squares and pop them up. And I'm just letting their tails kind of overhang the edge. I just think that has a fun look. And then I've got some treats that I can put in front of them here. So I've got this fun sundae that I'm going to put down here towards the bottom, sitting on the cloud. And then I'm going to put the ice cream cone in the other one's hand here, like it's holding it. I've also got this cloud that I've got, and I'm going to tuck that sort of behind that vellum so that has a cool look, and it also kind of frames that unicorn a little bit better and fills in the space. Then these cute little fairies that are in the set, I'm going to add this one up top like it's holding that shaker. I'm going to stamp some sprinkles coming out of that here in just a little bit. And then I'm going to add the other fairy with the wings spread out on the other side. So there are 2 styles of fairies in this set, and they actually coordinate with the fairies in a little sparkle unicorn set. So if you use all of them, you can have like 4 different fairies. And then I've got this piece of rainbow cake that I've colored. I'm going to set that on that cloud to kind of fill in that space there. And then here's the little sprinkles that are coming out of that sprinkle shaker. I stamped those in some guava ink. I'm going to add in some of those sparkle stamps again like I did on the card before using some sunflower ink. And then once I have all those stamped the way I want them, I'm going to put foam squares all over my back, avoiding the wheel. So I've already pulled off those liner papers. And then I'm just going to line up the front panel with that back panel on those foam squares. So I can take the whole panel that I've created, I'm putting liquid glue on the back, and I'm just going to layer that onto my card base, centering it up. And this is just a mermaid cardstock card base. So finally, to finish it off, I'm going to use this stamp from the Tiny Fairy Tale mini set that says "Turn here for magic," and I'm stamping this with some peacock ink. And this will let the recipient of the card know to turn the wheel to see something happen. So you can see when you turn that wheel, you get those cute little faces that change. You could also make this a color changing card, which is actually what Megan's card does. The cloud changes color. So now let's take a look at some cards by the design team. Audrey has this really cool watercolor background to highlight her unicorns on the cloud having a picnic. I love how Melissa used the cloud stencil to create a background, and I also love that gold embossed sentiment. It's definitely magical. Elise's card uses a die cut for a really big bold sentiment to go with her rainbow unicorns. And Elena created a fun picnic up in the clouds by using multiple long clouds and trimming them off on the sides. Grace made a really cool slimline card with lots of stenciling in the background and the new stitch rainbow die. Tammy also used that new stitch rainbow die and sparkle background, and I love her mix of stamped and die cut sentiments. Grace's reveal wheel has a great rainbow background. She also used that die cut sentiment, and she has a really fun sentiment in the reveal wheel as well. I love Letitia's sweet and simple card, and I love that new unicorn tail twine that she used. She also created a tall slimline card with lots of rainbow stenciling in the background and all those clouds. And then here's Megan's reveal wheel card that inspired the card that I made today. You can see how that cloud changes colors. Thanks so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.